There's been a lot of talk on this platform about how content creation is the new 9 to 5 trap. And I fully disagree with this take. And I want to share my perspective on it that can hopefully shed some light on some different ways to approach content creation if you're in the space where you feel like it's a bit of a trap right now, or if you're considering being a creator and you're seeing people talk about this and now you feel a little bit worried. But let's talk about what is true. Creating content and that being, your income, maybe your full-time income versus a 9 to 5 are just very, very different things. A 9 to 5 is great for a lot of reasons. I've had them in the past, and yeah, I mean they're great. However, creating content is just a very different thing. Like I make my own rules, I make my own terms, and that is one of the key distinctions that I kind of want to start touching on here because I think that a lot of people just build themselves into what they feel like is a trap when it doesn't have to. And I also want to say, and I've actually seen some other bigger creators talk about this, is that saying like your content creation as your job, is a trap really does come from a place of privilege to be able to say that feels also like a little bit disconnected. So if you're using that language and maybe if you're watching this and you are a content creator full time, like I would say like be a little bit wary of that because like it does come from a place of privilege. That doesn't downplay or discredit all of the things that come with being a full-time creator. Again, I'm speaking of this like I am not one of them. I have worked behind full-time creators, kind of behind the scenes working on their content and stuff, so I can speak to it with some experience on that side. So not to downplay any of it, there are a lot of stresses, a lot of things that come with it, and that's why in my last video talking about everyone quitting YouTube, we dive into that. But in general, it is just a very different situation. Like you can have your own stresses and there are things that come with building an audience and creating content, but in general it's just to refer to it as the same thing as like a 9 to 5 trap would I think be discrediting a lot of the people that are struggling with the work that they are doing. So, however, in this video, I want us to talk about the mindset shift of this to support people who are wanting to get into content creation or are in content creation and are struggling right now. And then also at the end, I want to give some practical solutions that through my experience of creating content for over a decade in different capacities, things that I'm starting to see that is making it very easier for me to start making stuff, on this channel and other stuff that I'm creating to be very practical. So the biggest thing to understand when it comes to being a content creator is that you are in control, not the algorithm. A lot of people play to the game of the algorithm, and that can be helpful in a lot of ways. Obviously, you can get your stuff in front of more people. Take this video as an example. This is a trending topic. I want to speak on this topic because I want to share my perspective on it. However, I do know that maybe this might get a little bit more traction. Maybe. I don't fully know. However, I am still in control. I am making this because I want to speak to it and it happens to be doing well versus me saying, "Oh, I need to make that video because it's trending right now and I can, I'll figure out what to say on it, but I need to speak to it because that's what the algorithm is pushing." So that's a very different distinction. Whereas a lot of people feel like, "Oh, this thing is trending. I need to go and do this challenge," or talk about stuff that like they don't care about, they're not passionate about, versus being like, no, here's something that I am passionate about and I want to speak on. Oh, and it's also trending. That's a win-win. But that puts you in control, not the algorithm. You are just being smart with the algorithm. The other thing is that a lot of people get themselves into what I assume feels like a content creation trap because of best practices that are preached out there online. Post every single day, post weekly, edit, the first 30 seconds of your show to do this, and all of these different things, which are helpful until they're not, until they start to stress you out because, oh, I have to do this, and I have to do this, and all of these different things. And then you just get burnt out and you don't want to do it, and then it starts to feel like a job. However, the point I always make to people is like, best practices obviously don't work for everybody because there's a lot of people who follow them all and like they're still not where they want to be relative to maybe who they're aspiring to be like. And so with that, like, they're best practice for a reason. I'm not saying they're like dumb. Like, no one would be saying all these things if they didn't work in some capacity. But I think it's more important to look at the foundation of why they may work. As a great example, there's kind of some other, and I'll probably make a video on this too, but people are talking about, Sam Sulek is a giant fitness creator right now in the space. He's blowing up. And so people are saying, throw all the best practices of doing all these fancy edits and all this stuff out the window and just start vlogging your life again. And, and that's going to go viral this year on YouTube. And like, that's just not the case. Like, that's just not true. The factor in it is that Sam Sulek is like extremely jacked. He has like a very, like, when you see him, you're like, I've not really seen many people that look like this guy. And his videos are him working out. He looks very strong. So if you're like, okay, well, like, what the heck is this guy doing? Because I have no idea about this. And then he is also very natural to listen to and is engaging and is trustworthy through the content that he's making. And he's a good like creator. He just is. Oh, my light is freaking out behind me. We're gonna shut that guy off. He just is a good creator. It's not the fact that he is like setting up his camera and not doing fancy editing or anything that's making him go viral. It's like, no, he just literally is an outlier in the fact of how he looks, and then he's able to like take you on that journey with him, but you're interested in him because you see his thumbnails of how he looks and you're like, what the heck is going on? And that's how he blew up. So people are preaching this one like best practice of like, go this authentic route, and it's like, at the core of it, he's just an entertaining guy with like a unique perspective, and that people found him and people started to genuinely like him, and then he took off, and that's why he was able to take off, by avoiding some of the other best practices of doing crazy Mr. Beast edits and thumbnails and stuff like that. Like, at the core of everything you consume and every person that you like is the fact that they are entertaining, or they are educational, or they are delivering value in some way that really connects. The best practices are there to help give a foundation, and especially to beginning creators. It's a little bit of a roadmap, but it is not the only answer. And the issue is that creators will assume they need to continue to always follow those best practices. But if it becomes harmful to how you're feeling about creating and to your, your life outside of making content, it's not supportive. And you don't have to fall into that. You don't have to fall into that trap, because best practices don't work for everybody. At the core of it, it's making stuff that is authentic to you, and those are the creators that typically stand out the most, whether they follow best practices or not. The other main point is, say you're feeling the struggle of it, and it's feeling like a little bit of a trap. The most important thing you can do is to connect with why you first wanted to start making stuff in the first place. I bet for 99% of people, it's because it sounded fun to show up and share some ideas and connect with people and hopefully be entertaining or educational or, of value in some way. And what happens is people start to play to the algorithms and start to overwork themselves because they assume they need to do all of these different things to stay relevant. And they really quickly lose sight of like why they got started in the first place, which is to be of value and to be entertaining and to just kind of express yourself creatively. When you get away from that, it's not going to be fun to you, and it's not even going to be fun to your audience. They're going to be able to tell that your energy is a little bit different. And so if you ever start to stray away from that, where it's starting to feel stressful, like try to reconnect to that younger version of yourself that wanted to pick up a camera and start talking. Because that, like tapping into that joy and that creativity, will make your content that much better in the first place. So I would rather you take a break, take a couple weeks, take months, but reconnect with that version of yourself. And then when you show up, your content will be that much more entertaining, because people can tell. I said this before, audiences are not dumb. Like we're not dumb. We can feel the difference. And ultimately, I feel like everybody in your audience that's like the right audience that you should be going after would want the same for you. And that is actually another big assumption, is like when you see these people that talk about their struggles with content creation, you can go through the comments and there's never anybody that's mad that they're going to slow down or stop. There are people that might be disappointed, but they're like, I get it. Like, please take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your mental health. Like, all of these things that are nice that these creators are typically so afraid of expressing because they're going to get, heat for it. And instead, they are given freedom from their audience to take that time away because the audience loves them for them. And that is just such a interesting realization that usually it's like after creators probably spent like weeks or months like really stressing about it, that turns out everything was actually okay and the world didn't end. And so the only other piece of this, I've mentioned it a couple times here, is questioning your assumptions. This is some advice that I've heard from a mentor of mine, Dr. Benjamin Hardy, speaks to me a lot about this, where we've talked about like questioning your assumptions. And that just means that you look at people in the content creator space and maybe this person's doing this and this person's doing this, and you assume that as you get started, you need to do all of these things. And that can be really stressful and very taxing and overwhelming. But the truth is, if you look around at all the different creators and different people that are successful, there's all these things that are like, they're not related to each other whatsoever. So your assumption that, oh, I need to do this because they've made it, but this other person over here has made it as well, and they don't do any of that same stuff. It's like, don't do something because you assume you need to do it. Do something because it feels authentic to you when it comes to creating stuff. If you can create from that space, everything around you will be so much better. And it is just such a more enjoyable way of creating and of being. And so, honestly, yeah, don't assume you need to do anything, or don't follow anything that you're like, I don't really want to do this, but I just assume I need to make content like this, or my thumbnails need to look like this, or whatever it is. Question it. Question all the time, because there's probably examples of people who aren't doing it that are where you would want to take, your brand and your content creation. So that is my mindset perspective on it. Now, there are a couple things that help me when it comes to recording and creating stuff that I think is really beneficial to just, talk shop almost and hear about it. So the biggest thing for me is setting constraints, letting go of assumptions of how you need to create things and setting constraints that can support you. With this content on this channel, I am doing it in one take. My camera is hooked up. I am recording through QuickTime. I do one take and I upload the video. Right now, I'm not even going to edit thumbnails. I'm just choosing one that YouTube gives me, and that's what I'm doing. Very simple, not overthinking it, not spending hours editing it all the way through or anything like that. Just one take. I might mess up halfway through and I might restart a video, but I'm aiming for one take and uploading that. And it's not going to serve everybody, but if you're here, then you're interested in hearing people discuss this more in depthly and just having a conversation. And that's what I'm after. That's the audience that I want on this channel. And that's okay. And so that constraint, I didn't create for a long time because I was like, I need to do fancy setup and do all this stuff, and I know my setup looks pretty decent, but I've also seen people with phones that are outside walking, and those videos go way more viral than whatever views this video will have. And so again, that's even questioning assumptions a bit, but that constraint has helped me a lot. The other thing that helps me is recording in batches. If you feel called to do so, I'm recording a couple of videos today just because I feel energized to do it and I'm excited to do it, and so that helps me create some videos for a couple days in a row, or maybe I'll publish them all, but that'll still let me put out some more content because I want to. I feel called to do it. I don't feel like I'm forcing myself to, but when I record in batches, that is a practical way to help me stay ahead of things and just keep creating a little bit more. But I am doing it out of I want to do it, not I feel like I have to do it. The other thing that I think is really going to be helpful to people who, there's a lot that when it comes to creating, there's editing, there's publishing, all this stuff. If you want to do that, if you want to edit and stuff, is to really embrace AI tools. Truly, I have been editing videos for a long time. I used to do it professionally, and things that used to take me hours to do, or at least up to an hour to edit, maybe a social clip to go on social media. Now with tools like Descript is a good one. I can edit a social clip in like 5 minutes. 5 minutes, what used to take me an hour. So AI tools are genuinely helpful, but it's just taking 30 minutes a week to learn a tool and adapt to it. It took me a long time to adapt to it because I was so used to being a Adobe Premiere Pro junkie and just editing through that. But now I've embraced like AI editing tools, and I'm like, oh my gosh, so much of this really is easy. Sure, there's some limitations, but again, I'm like, but my constraints allow me to like, I'll work within those limitations, and that's okay. And so really embracing some AI tools will speed up a lot of the process that might make it, feel a little bit hard to do all of these things. But also question it if you need to do anything and everything, right? Like some people say, I need to make a long video and then short form videos and this and this and this. And it's like, there's some people that just make YouTube videos. Like some of my content here would just be on this YouTube channel. And that's cool. And that's okay. I don't feel like the assumption is I would take this, edit it up in a bunch of different ways, put it on every platform, yada, yada, yada. I can do that if I want to, but I don't have to because I'm most passionate about YouTube right now, and that's all that matters. And so that is how I am breaking over, like when I hear people talk about it being a 9 to 5 trap, I just really disagree. I just think it's such a weird perspective of it because you're the creator, you're in control, you make the rules. Ultimately, you make the rules. And I think that a lot of people just fear admitting that or acknowledging that because of the algorithm and different things like that. And those are valid. Those are valid. But also, you're going to be happier if you let go of all that stress around that. And so you'll have to adapt in different ways and stuff. You'll be changing up your process if you're kind of in this, like, I feel stuck and I'm trapped. But again, why did you get started in the first place? Connect to that, create from that space, and you're going to be so much better off than if you keep playing this intense content game where suddenly it feels like a job, you're less passionate about it, like all of those things just start to compile or start to compound on themselves in a negative way. And instead it's like, well, let's question all the assumptions and try to get to that space where you're creating very openly and freely and let it compound in a very positive way. And that'll change everything. So let me know your thoughts on content creation being the new 9 to 5 trap, and kind of your thoughts on that. Very curious for other people's perspectives. There's things that you might disagree with me. I'm happy to talk about any and all of that. But in general, thank you so much for being here. My name is Chris Jordan. Grateful for anybody watching, and as I explore making this stuff freely from that place of joy and creativity on this channel. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.